if you can, drop in the chat if you have booked in a trip, where you're going, and if you haven't booked in a trip, where you would like to go. It might help Rowan with his webinar, because we're going to be talking all about how to train for descents. So on that note, I will let Rowan take it away.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, hello, everybody. I hope everyone's been well since the last month or two since we've last done this. So yeah, tonight we are talking all about training for descents, which is a pretty relevant one for obviously most hikers. So plan of attack for tonight, similar structure to kind of we've done previously. If you have ever done one of these before. Basically, I've got a bit of presentation I'm going to roll everyone through. I'm going to put a bit too much info in it again, so I'm going to be talking pretty quickly as I try to zoom through everything, make sure I get through it in plenty of time. But I'm going to zip through it all. If you guys have any questions as I come through the presentation, or any questions in general about training for descents, just pop them in the chat. I'll cover them at the end when we have a little bits and pieces, and then we'll be finishing up around about 6:45, and we'll see how we go. So with that being said, let me share my screen and we can get into it all. And we've got the good old PowerPoint again, which is always a winner. So here we go. So yeah, basically, quick introduction. If you haven't come across me before, if you're, haven't been to one of these webinars, we'll do a quick introduction about who I am. My name is Rowan Smith. I'm the founder of Summit Strength, which is an online personal training service which specializes in working with hikers. Now, essentially, we typically help three types of hikers who come to us for help with their training. Number one, sort of someone who does have a big trip in their sights and they're like, look, got a big trip. I want to make sure I'm in a really good position to properly enjoy that. So probably a lot of you people here may resonate with that a little bit. We also work with lots of people who struggle with an ankle pain. Lots of hikers struggle with things like knee pain, foot pain, back pain, all of that. We work with a lot of hikers like that. And we also work with lots of hikers who may not have just a big trip coming up, but they like to get out on the weekends or whatever it may be, and they do realize maybe their fitness, their strength is holding them back a little bit from properly enjoying things. So they're typically the three types of hikers we work with in one way, shape, or form. For myself personally, I've trained and prepared over 400 hikers for every type of trip imaginable, from first-time hikers who are really stepping up to their first day hike, really, to people who are doing some of the longest trails in the world and everything in between. We've done and seen it all. So yeah, this is my full-time job. This is my life's work, and it's literally all I do every day. Now, today we are talking about descents, downhills, and that all fun, because, a lot of us know, if you've ever been on the trail before, uphills are tough, but descents can be, a real pain. A lot of people struggle with things like painful knees, really big issue when we're going down steep down hills, getting the old jelly legs where you go and you get those shakes in your legs and you can't control yourself or feel a little bit dodgy. Crushed toes, feeling really unstable, and it can just turn into a bit of an ordeal, which is never much fun. Now, for some people who have easy access to lots of elevation, maybe big hills, maybe not so much mountains in Australia, that just can get out on trails with lots of up and down all the time, this may not be an issue because you can kind of hike regularly, have lots and lots of time, and go out and just be exposed to this. May not be an issue for people in that situation, but none of us are all in such a perfect situation. A lot of us may not have easy access to elevation, may not be able to hike every single weekend. Maybe no matter how much hiking we do, we still realize there's a bit of a struggle, whatever it may be. So in any of those situations, it's probably worthwhile thinking, okay, what can I be doing during my week to help support me in these situations? And then you may want to be taking your training a little bit more seriously. So today we're going to be diving into this subject just a little bit and give you a few simple things which you may be able to help with this. So essentially what we're going to be covering tonight is we're basically going to be covering some basic stuff around strength training, specifically for descents, a little bit of balance training, again, specifically for descents, and a little bit of cardio training as well. Now, we won't be getting into, specific workouts, specific training plans, because we'll be here for hours and hours and hours if we're going into that, and everyone is in different situations. So we're going to be covering some basic stuff, and then you basically need to take that information and apply it into your own situation. So why are descents so hard? As much as they, as I said before, they can suck for a lot of people, but what's actually going on? Basically, one thing that does happen is every single step that we take downhill, the body takes a hugely disproportionate amount of extra force through the joints. So what that means is walking on the flats, body takes a certain amount of force every single step we take. Now, for every single step we take downhill, and it gets more and more the steeper it is, the joints just take a huge amount of extra force. So A lot of people who haven't done much hiking before, they might be like, hey, what's the deal? Walking downhill, it's not that big a deal, but there is a lot of force going through the body. On top of that, the muscles themselves, outside of the joints, the muscles themselves are going to be working overtime to really, really, really try and stabilize you because we don't want our legs slipping out from under us. We're sort of going on uneven terrain. The muscles themselves are taking a lot of force in this situation, which can lead to early fatigue. Hikers often reach the descent already a bit fatigued. Like, typically, you get to the top of the hill, then you come down, and the top of the hill, we get puffing and puffing, we're tired, whatever it may be. And a lot of people get to these descents and they're already, at the end of the rope. They think this is going to be the easy bit, but, sometimes not so easy. And there's often the added mental load, which a lot of people don't talk about a lot. But, a lot of people do maybe have had a bad experience falling or slipping. Maybe they don't feel super steady on their feet or whatever it may be. And there can be a bit of an added mental load, which, even though it does stress you out mentally, physically, if we are really, really up in our heads, it can actually stress us out physically and just cause a little bit extra energy to be expended, which again can lead into fatigue and just exasperate. I can never say that word. Exasperate all those issues. Basically, all of this adds up to a pretty serious challenge. Now, first thing we're going to be covering, as I said before, is a little bit of strength training. So, strength training, when it comes down to it, is such a beneficial thing for hikers in so many different situations. Specifically, when we're talking about descents and downhill hiking, it's really, really beneficial for a few particular reasons. Number one, if we can build up the muscles which best support the joints on the downhills, we can help protect them from pain and discomfort. So the knees, the hips, the back, if we can build up those supporting muscles, less likely that's going to turn into pain or discomfort. We can aid stability and balance. So getting stronger muscles, building up stability through those exercises can actually help us feel a little bit more sure-footed, a little bit more confident when we're down those dodgy downhills. It can reduce fatigue through other sections of the hike. So when we're looking at those steep up hills, can make them significantly easier. So we enter the downhills feeling a little bit fresher. And there's a bunch of other things, but they're really the big ones, specifically going into descents. Now, in general, every single hiker, regardless of the situation, whether it's descents, whatever it may be, they are going to get some really, 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 really great benefits if they're just developing strength through the entire body. Like whole body strength training is something I get every single one of my hikers doing. So essentially working the quads, which are the front of the thighs, the hamstrings, which are the back of the thighs, the glutes, which are the bum muscles, the calves, which are the sort of smaller muscles in the lower limbs, bit of upper body, bit of core. If you work all of that, over the week, you're doing pretty well. However, when we're talking about descents, there's a couple of things a few particular tips we can look at to really, really hone in on this. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is what's called eccentric muscle strength. So essentially, what an eccentric muscle contraction is where a muscle contracts while it's lengthened. So to put this into a little bit of context, if we're thinking about a bicep curl, not super relevant for hikers, but really relevant for this example. Now, bicep curl, typically we're bringing a weight up and bringing a weight down. We're getting the bicep working up and down. Now, what's called a concentric muscle contraction is where the muscle is contracting and it's shortening. So essentially in bicep curl, we're shortening the muscle, biceps are getting smaller, we're moving this. And this is what a lot of us really, really think about when we think about strength training. Because we think about, okay, doing this. We think about on a step up, going up on a step up. We think about on a squat, pushing up on the step up on a squat. All of these sort of, the hard parts of the motion, which is all well and good. Now, the eccentric muscle contraction is essentially when the muscle will contract while it's actually lengthening. So essentially in the bicep curl, this is concentric muscle contraction. This is an eccentric muscle contraction, where the muscle's still contracting and it's getting longer. Now, that may seem a bit technical and like, why are you talking about this? But it's really, really, really relevant for descents. Because essentially when we're doing descents, when stepping off steps, stepping down hills or whatever it may be, our bodies and our legs specifically are going through a lot of these eccentric muscle contractions. You can sort of imagine when you're going down a step and you're on one leg and you're lowering down to one leg, your quadricep is getting longer as you're lowering down and it's contracting. So essentially, in our training, if we can develop this particular type of strength and put a bit of extra focus into it, it can be really, really beneficial for improving our performance and also improving our comfort on the downhills. Now, typically, if you've done any type of strength training in the past, and this is a mass generalization, but I've worked in the fitness industry for 15 odd years, and I would sort of say 98% of people do this regardless of their situation. Most people, when it comes down to their training, they kind of miss out a little bit on this eccentric muscle strength. And a lot of people will do quick repetitions. So essentially, for example, if you're doing squats, a lot of people go up and down, up and down, up and down, maybe a second up and down, second up and down. Or maybe doing their bicep curls and like up and down, kind of like, you jump in an exercise class, you get a good burn on the muscles, but you're doing quite quick. That can get us to a point, but it does sort of miss this particular type of strength just a little bit. So a really, really, really simple rule of thumb where you can basically really hone in on this type of strength and really, really, really just explode your results when it comes to specific training for hiking is if we just slow our exercises down a little bit. And essentially for any exercise that you're doing, when you're kind of doing the easy part, when you're kind of lowering yourself down or the bit that you don't really concentrate on too much, allow for about a 3 to 5 seconds on the sort of lowering or the easy part of exercises. And that can go a really, really long way. So, for example, if we're looking at a squat, basically on a squat, you start at the top, you go down, you come up. If you sort of start at the top and you count about 4 seconds or 5 seconds on the way down, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you come up, and then you come down 1, 2, 3, 4, come up, and keep on doing that for however many repetitions you're doing. That's exactly what I'm talking about here, and this will help target that eccentric muscle strength a little bit more. It will get you some really, really, really good results, and specifically for descents, it can help the body just feel a little bit more comfortable. So really simple tip, and you can kind of apply it into any situation. The good news of this is it also has great benefits when it comes down to just generally improving your strength, kind of great benefits if you're looking just body composition, if you're looking at toning, whatever it may be. There's a bunch of other sort of branching out things that happen, but this is a really, really good rule of thumb. Now, physically developing eccentric strength through key muscles can be really beneficial, and I want to show you just a few simple examples to kind of help you here. Now, first example here is a really, really good one called the eccentric pistol squat. So this is a great exercise to develop quadriceps strength, so strength through the front of the thighs, and again, specifically working on this eccentric muscle strength. Now, the pistol squat in general, great exercise, but it can be a little bit tricky for some people. So this eccentric pistol squat is really, really focused on the lowering component. So essentially all you need to do is you get like a chair, a couch, a bench, something like that, something that's going to like line up where, if you're sitting down, your knees would be about 90 degrees. You can either do this holding a couple of poles, like I like to use trekking poles if you're using them, or you can just do it without poles if you don't need. And basically all you're doing is you start at the top, one leg goes in the air, and then you lower down for like 5 to 6 seconds, lower, 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 put 2 feet down, stand up, and then you're basically just doing this. And what this is doing is really, really, really relevant for helping prepare the body for those, stepping off rocks or whatever it may be. And it's developing that particular muscle strength I was talking about before. Now, for this particular exercise, you can kind of look at doing, aim for about 5 to 6 seconds on the way down. If you want to make this a little bit easier for yourself, you can use a higher box or a higher chair. You can put like a pillow on your chair or something and just use it and bump it up. If you want to make it more difficult, you can make it a little bit lower. And, some people go literally all the way down the floor. And that's pretty challenging. I can't do that, but some people can. And if you're doing this, maybe do something like 8 repetitions at a time. So, choose a height where you could do about 8 repetitions, and then you're like, oh, I need to kind of rest now. So you have a rest, and then you go again. So that's the first exercise. There's lots of different things that can do a similar effect, but that's a really simple one, which a lot of people can have access to. Now, another one. This one is a little bit tricky, but this is basically one working the hamstring strength, and specifically, again, that eccentric hamstring strength. Now, this is really, really relevant, particularly if you're going on a hike where maybe the terrain's a little bit like rocky or a little bit loose. And essentially what tends to happen is we're stepping down on hills, and every single step we're taking, your feet land, and then the rocks just slide like a centimeter or two. And you're constantly just trying to just prevent your legs from sliding out from under you. Your hamstrings and your calves can take a battering, and they can get really, 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 really tired. So this exercise is great for helping develop that and prevent that, and also any other type of descents. So basically what you're doing here is basically you are getting, so annoying, you're getting, there's a couple of they call them fitness sliders. You can buy them like Kmart, like $5 or $10. If you don't have any of those, you can use like a Swiss ball. Like if you've got one of those exercise balls lying around, you can use magazines and get 2 magazines and do it on a carpet floor. Or if you have a hardwood floor, you can use a towel. So there's a bunch of different options here. And essentially what you're doing here is really, really focusing on keeping the core tight and then slowly lowering the legs out, nice and controlled, and then pulling back in. And just working like this. If this is a little bit too much for you, you can concentrate, similar to the last one, on just going on the way out. So you just push on the way out, all the way out, control, control, control. And then if you need, you can just completely relax and bring the sliders in, and then again, just focus on the way out. It can be a decent option. This is a bit of an advanced exercise, but it's really, really, really relevant for this type of thing. Now, if this particular exercise is a little bit too tricky for you, this is a bit more of an accessible option for a lot of people, which is like a single-legged deadlift, where basically you're on one leg, got a pole for a little bit of support, and you're basically just tipping over one leg at a time. And again, this is loading up the hamstrings in a way that's going to be relevant for hiking, and you to really concentrate on that slow lower can be pretty beneficial. So there's a few different options there. As I always say with the strength stuff, is like, by itself, it's, single exercises are only going to do so much. But if you kind of incorporate this into a, more holistic program, can really go a long way. So a few examples there. Now, I fully understand when it comes to me talking about strength training. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's he talking about? That looks good, but I don't know how to apply this. I've never really done it before. I'm not really sure how to put together workouts or anything like that. If you were interested in strength training for hiking, I've talked about this on the webinars a couple of times before. We do have a little free mini course for people around about how to get started with strength training for hiking, which we offer completely for free. Basically, inside the course, we'll dive into the specific benefits of strength training for hiking a little bit more. It'll talk about some just simple principles around how to get the most out of this type of training to help you hiking. And it'll also help teach you how to create your own strength workouts. So the intention of the course is basically you'll go through the course, you'll get to the point where you can create 2 of your own strength workouts, which you can fit into your week, and you can kind of train there. And it'll teach you exactly what you need to do to how to play around that. If you did want to get access to that course, as I said, completely free, all you need to do is go to summitstrength.com.au/strength-mini-course. Course. So summitstrength.com.au/strength-mini-course. You just plug in your email and it will get you set up on the course, and you can check it out and work with it there. So completely free for anyone who wants to get access to that. Now, that's strength training. That's the first thing we want to cover. Next one is balance training. So balance stability can be really, really, really important for descents. Specifically, because as I said before, a lot of people do struggle with that steady footedness. They feel a bit unbalanced. They feel a bit unconfident or whatever it may be. Now, if we want to get a little bit more specific in regards to descents, training what's called closed eyes balance can be really, really useful. Now, what I mean by this is the situation that often happens is we're on the downhills, we've got this rocky terrain, and we're basically, okay, when we're concentrating, when we're really, really looking at the terrain, it's kind of okay. We're kind of really looking where our feet go, and we're looking, making sure our steps are all good. It's sometimes a bit dodgy, but it's, most of the time we can survive. What often will happen is sometimes we don't want to always be looking exactly at the trail. Sometimes we want to look up, we want to have a conversation, talk to a friend, we see a bird fly across, we want to look at that, and we see a nice view, we want to look at that. And sometimes we basically just want to be balanced in a situation where we're not actually looking where we're going. And that's essentially where this closed eye balance comes from, where we're training our body to know where it is in space without us actually being able to see where we are in space. So this is really, really simple, how to train it. Basically, all you're doing is you're practicing balancing with your eyes closed. Simple as that. So first thing you would do if you were trying to access this is all you would do, stand in your room, stand in your bedroom, stand right now, stand on one leg, close your eyes. You will notice pretty quickly it's pretty hard. Some people can do for like 60 seconds and they're amazing, they're crazy, they don't have to do any more balance training, that's all good. Most people will probably get around 10 to 30 seconds or something like that, purely from that. That's a really good first place to start. You can start to do that in your workouts, you can do it when you went to the kettle, whatever it may be, just standing on one leg, eyes closed. Once you kind of got a handle on that, like, oh, that feels pretty good. I want to make it a little bit more challenging. The next thing is you can just literally stand on one leg on a pillow. You can grab a pillow from home, or whatever it may be. Stand on one leg on a pillow, gives a little bit of instability. And again, close your eyes. You'll notice that's a big, big, big challenge. And again, you can throw that in random parts of your day. That can be a nice way to add things in. If you feel like that's a little bit too easy for you, then you can basically stand on one leg on a pillow and you can get something and just circle it around your waist. Could be like a can of, a tin of tomatoes. It could be like a water bottle. It could be literally anything. It doesn't have to be heavy. It's just something that you're just shifting around your waist. So to give an example here is basically I've got a little version here, not on a pillow, but basically this has got a weight. I'm standing on a mat, does the same thing, and literally just moving around. Really, really, really simple, but you will notice it's pretty challenging. And the next thing you can kind of look at if you're like, hey, that's pretty easy. The next sort of level you can look at doing the same thing. And again, this is all with your eyes closed, standing on a pillow, and you kind of tap your foot around you. So essentially what you look at is sort of tapping 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, 1 foot to the side, 1 foot to the side. You'll notice as you're kind of shifting your weight around, that can be a really big challenge again. So this type of training, I sort of say, like, you don't have to do specific balance training, like, it does get a bit tedious. But what I usually recommend is just add it into random parts of your day. When you're waiting for the kettle, when you're waiting for the bus or whatever it may be, add it into your warm-ups if you're warming up before training. Just do this, once or twice in your warm-ups. Or if you're doing rest periods, if you're doing strength training, typically you do strength training, then you rest, then you do it, then you rest, then you do it, then you rest. This is a good thing just to throw in those rest periods. You're not just wasting time and standing around. That's a nice thing for you. Now, one word of warning with this type of training, it is really, really, really slow to improve. Closed arm balance is a really, really, really slow thing. It can feel really, really tedious and it can be really annoying because it's very, 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 very frustratingly slow for anyone. So it's the type of thing where you just have to stick with it and you have to just dose it in where you can. But if you are aware that, look, balance is a bit of an issue, this can be really, really beneficial. So let me just check my time. Yes, right on time. This is all good. Cool. All right. So next one, cardio. So yeah, coming in cardio, how fit you are, aerobic fitness, and all of that. In general, as a really, 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 really general thing, the more aerobically fit you are, the less fatigue that you accumulate over your hikes, the easier a descents are going to be. In general, it's pretty simple. Like, look, if I'm more fit and I get to these descents and I'm not quite as tired, it's going to be easier. In general, that's a general rule of thumb. It's just another reason. Like, aerobic fitness is so important for hikers for a billion reasons, and this is one of them. But if we want to get a little bit more specific for downhills, we want to have a think about specific training and specific cardio training in this situation. Now, an issue a lot of hikers we often see is when it comes down to their training, as we sort of said, everyone knows uphills are hard. Everyone knows that's a challenge. And sometimes downhills do get a little bit neglected. And many hikers out there will sometimes just get a little bit wrapped up in focusing on the uphill with their training, with their cardio, which isn't bad, but sometimes we end up neglecting the descents. So, for example, people do stuff on the Stairmasters, the Jacob's Ladder, they do lots of step ups, or whatever it may be. All of this stuff is good, but if done by itself, it will train the uphills because you're just going up and up and up and up. It won't do a huge amount for descents. And this can often leave a little bit of a gap for some people, particularly if you're aware there's a bit of a struggle. So basically, when it comes down to if you want to train for this, to get a little bit more targeted with this, what I strongly advocate for people to do is try to get some specific exposure to descents in their training. So what that means is basically doing some stair or hill sessions outside of the gym, so outdoors on a natural set of stairs or hills. That's typically the gold standard because not only are you training on the way up, but you also have to go back down and get the body exposed to that. And you may not feel like the repeated descents of going down, that may not feel too difficult, but the body does need that just to get used to that repeated step and step and step and step and step. It's really, 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 really valuable. These type of sessions, they don't have to be too complicated. It's really, really simple. Essentially, the hardest part of it typically is finding something accessible to train on because a lot of people will struggle with this. Typically, what we want to do is find a local set of stairs or a hill. It doesn't have to be outrageously long. It doesn't have to be something that is super super steep. It really comes down to whatever you have access to. Some of the people we train with, they live right next to a mountain or a hill, whatever it may be. They can happily find something that they can climb up to 30 minutes, really steep incline. That's easy for them. Some people, literally, they just don't have anything accessible and they've only got 10 steps somewhere they found a local neighborhood, which they go up and down a bajillion times, which isn't super enjoyable, but it's what they have access to. So it's really a case of just sort of thinking, okay, what can I get access to and giving a whirl on that. And essentially all you do is you choose a specific amount of time you're going to do this session, whether it's for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever it may be, and you essentially just go up and down, up and down. You can do this at a lower intensity session where you're being quite slow and steady and methodical. You don't really get out of breath, but you're just going up and down. You can do this as a higher intensity session where you're pushing the pace a little bit, get quite puffed and puffed. Depends on what you want, what you're after. You can get flexible with this, but it's really just getting the body exposed to up and down, up and down. It's pretty common sense, but it's really, really beneficial. Now, essentially with any of these types of sessions, we always want to think about, okay, if we get a baseline, we do a session, over time, the body will get used to it. We don't want to do the same thing every single week that we do. So over time, we do want to sort of look at, okay, how can I make this a little bit more challenging for myself? So a few simple options for that. Each week, you can add a little extra time. Literally, what I do with a lot of my hikers is every single week, we'll just add an extra few minutes to the session. They'll do 20 minutes one week, 23 minutes the next week, 26 minutes the next week. That's all it takes. You just add a little bit each time you do it. Or you can start introducing a little bit of pack weight. So if you're going out and you've got to carry, say, a 6 kilo day pack on your trip, then you might do 4 weeks of going up and down your hill without a pack, then 4 weeks where you slowly increase a little bit of pack weight, something like that. Or you could find like a steeper or longer hill or a set of stairs or whatever it may be. But just sort of thinking, okay, I just don't want the body to stagnate, just do the same thing over and over and over, but I just want to progress it in one way or another as we're coming through. Now, a couple of tips for these workouts. Let's get a little bit more out of them. As I sort of said, you can sort of change the way you go about this in regards to slow or quick or whatever it may be. I quite like getting my hikers to practice both going quick, where they're getting quite huffed and puffed and getting exposure to that feeling, and also slow climbing, when you're basically being a little bit more conservative, just really trying to control your breathing, be a little bit slower and kind of going up and down. And essentially what I get a lot of my hikers to do is they'll find a set of stairs, they'll climb up at one time at a slow pace, then go back down, whatever they want. Then they'll climb up at a quick pace, and then they'll come back down, then slow, quick, slow, quick. It's a nice way of mixing things up. Very, very simple. Typically you do some people attempt, they're like, okay, I struggle on descents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really go quick on the way down. So I'm going to train the body and get it a little bit more challenging. Typically, I sort of say on the way down hills, even if you're trying to train this specifically, keep it slow, keep it controlled. You don't want to be rushing on the down hills. You don't want to be slipping when you're coming down or whatever it may be. Keep it slow and controlled. And if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, go quicker on the uphill so then your legs are a little bit more fatigued for the downhill. It works out pretty well. And if you are going through the route of loading up the pack weight, and as I said before, if you're building up to a 6 kilo pack or 7 kilo pack or whatever it may be, what I typically recommend for this is if you load up your pack, use water bottles, as opposed to some people use weights, dumbbells, some people use, rice or dog food or whatever. I like water bottles because if you do get halfway through the session, you're like, oh, you know what, this is a bit too much for me, or you know what, my knee's getting sore, or my feet are getting sore, you can just pour some water out and kind of continue on if you want. So there's a simple trick, but it makes a big difference. Same thing for your training height is really, really good tip to give you a little bit of flexibility. And then the first time you do this, if you haven't done it before, what typically happens is the first time you do it, the next day you wake up and like, oh my God, my calves are killing me. And they tend to be sore for like 2 or 3 days. It happens to probably like 50% of people who do a session like this. As long as that's, discomfort and it's not like, oh my gosh, I've torn my calf muscle or anything like that, it's typically fine. It'll generally clear after a few days and it probably won't happen again. It's usually the first time you do a session like this, the body's like, oh my gosh, this is a new stimulus, like what's going on, it gets really, really sore. But I always say it's better for this to happen during your training as opposed to after day one of your hike. When you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. So yeah. And then, yeah, a lot of people ask me, how often should I be doing this? I typically only recommend doing this once a week. You don't need to be doing 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. Some people like to do that. And if you love it and you've got all the time in the world, that's fine. I typically recommend doing this once a week. And then if you're doing other training sessions in the week, just doing other things, whether it's the strength training, whether it's like flatter walking, whether it's whatever it may be. But it's usually a once a week thing that you look at here. Now, the other question is, what if I don't have access to real stairs or hills, which, some people do. They may look around, they're like, look, no matter where I am, there's just nothing. I can't, there's no office blocks, there's no, grandstands, there's no hills, there's no, literally nothing. If you have no access to that, you're just going to work with what you've got. And that's all you can do. So essentially what you need to do in that situation is make sure you are nailing your strength training. Because as we said, strength training can be really beneficial. So making sure you're on top of that. You know what you're doing. You're progressing things. You've got a program you're following. Making sure you're on top of that. Make sure you're just nailing your general cardio and your uphill cardio. So if you don't have access to rear stairs or hills, just making sure you're doing anything you can just build up your fitness in general. And then also just making sure you're nailing your other controllable areas of what I call fatigue management, the other areas that are going to affect your energy. So you can enter these downhills not feeling tired. So things like that as nutrition, hydration, pacing. We did the whole webinar on this last time or the time before around all of this. So all of those tips, making sure you're on top of it. Now, in these situations, it's not perfect because it's always going to be better if we have access to training the downhills, but you got to work with what you're given. And I've worked with lots and lots and lots and lots of people who've only ever done these things in their training, didn't have a single hill to train on or whatever it may be. We got them wherever they wanted. It's very, very doable. It just takes a little bit more. Now, a few other quick tips before I wrap up this. And cool, I'm right on time still. So a few little things. If you don't use them at all, don't use them already. Trekking poles make a huge difference. Get them, use them, practice them. 2 of them will make all the difference in the world on the downhills. Typically, I recommend making sure you're refueling after a tough ascent. So give yourself a little bit of time at the top of the hill, have a little snack, high carbohydrate, get the energy into you. So when you're going on the downhill, you're not knackered. A lot of people will tend to, different trip itineraries or sometimes go uphill and then they're like, okay, we're going to have lunch, but we got to get down this hill at the bottom. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm knackered. Then I'm going to just hold off until I have lunch or morning tea at the bottom. Which is fine, but then you tend to be a bit depleted on energy. So have a snack at the top, make sure you're entering with a bit of energy. And another thing is breathing to calm yourself. If you are the type of person who gets up in their head, starts stressing out, starts worrying, whatever it may be, breath can be a really, really big thing. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because we'll be here all night, but two simple things, strategies you can use. Number one is 3 deep breaths. If you do notice you start freaking out, do you notice you're up in your head, do you notice like your heart rate's going all the time, stop for a second. Just take 3 deep breaths. Big breath in, big as you can, out, big as you can. Do that 3 times and then go again. Use that as many times as you want. Sometimes just taking it that moment, just to have those intentional breaths, it can just do all the good in the world, just to calm you down, help you chill out, and just reset the mind a little bit. Sounds simple, but it does the job. The other thing is nose breathing. So nose breathing gets talked about a lot, online, social media. Still often talked about this magical thing, but it's not a magical thing, but it can be useful in this situation. Nose breathing is just a nice way of just slowing down your breathing, which again just helps calm us down and this and that. So sticking to a pace where you can breathe in and out through your nose. If you kind of get a little bit stressed out, this can just slow us down and help us chill out a little bit. Now, final thing I'm just going to cover before we get into Q&A. Hopefully, this will give you a little bit of a direction in regards to what you can incorporate just to help with the descents. Obviously, a bit of information. Obviously, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky putting it all together. So if you're in a situation where you're like, look, this sounds good, but I just want this all laid out for me, or I would just like a little bit extra help or whatever it may be, I would love to have a chat with you. As I've said in previous ones, we offer personalised training programs for hikers to ultimately help them get fit, strong, and resilient for their adventures. They're all online programs. We work with hikers all around the world and in every situation imaginable. Essentially, our packages typically covering creating a custom and personalised workout program to get you ready for anything the trail may throw at you, working around your goals, your preferences, your time availabilities, your equipment, your experience, your history, all personalised to you. We also put a big emphasis into education, so we'll educate you on the peripheral factors that can sometimes make or break an adventure, things like nutrition, recovery, self-care, mental strength, pain prevention, a bunch of other things. And we also put a big emphasis into coaching, support, and accountability, so everyone works with a coach to keep them on track through the ups and downs of anything that's going on. Now, if you did want to learn a little bit more about that, see if it, something you might be interested in or whatever it may be, you can essentially go to summitstrength.com.au/online. There's a big video there which talks through a little bit about our program and how we go about things and what it's all about. And ultimately, if you were interested in finding out a little bit more, there's a link on that page where you can book a call with our team, have a bit of a chat, and just get a bit more information, see if and how it may be right for you. But with that being said, that is my presentation done. So I hope that was enjoyable for people. I hope you got a little bit out of that, and that gave you, gave some good feedback. So let me just not feedback, good info. So let me just dig into the comments, the messages, and just see if there's any questions. If you have any questions that have popped up after all of that, fire away. We've still got about 6 minutes before I've got to go get into dinner. So fire away. Happy to chat anything. So Marion, could you share the PowerPoint? Yeah, I think Olivia or Sophie will be sharing the recording afterwards. So should all be good. Cool. So any questions? Fire them away. But if not, then we might wrap things up. Here we go. So Debbie, I'm getting a lot of cramps in the calves and thighs. What do I need to be eating and drinking? So Debbie, is that after exercise? Is that at night? Is it on days you've exercised? When does it typically pop up? Yeah, at night after heavy exercise. Yeah. So basically, that's really, really common. So a few things you can kind of do there. There's a few different. Oh, let me see if I can. I did have a worksheet on this. Can't remember. I got rid of all my bookmarks the other day, so I don't know where it is. But basically cramps. They'll typically appear if you have had a heavy session where those muscles are a little bit overly fatigued. So a few things you can kind of do over time as you develop strength, develop fitness, get more used to the sessions. It'll probably get less and less and less as the muscles build themselves up. But in the short term, a few things you can kind of have a look at. Number one is making sure you have electrolytes. So a really, really simple thing that can happen from cramping is just the body just loses electrolytes through sweat. Maybe we're just drinking water and we're not replenishing them. That can be a factor in regards to cramping. So basically, after training or with your dinner or anything like that, having a little bit of electrolyte supplement, or in a whole one, just a half of one or whatever, that will probably make a bit of a difference. Also, making sure you are rehydrated. So, easiest way to figure out hydration is go to the bathroom, have a look at your urine color. If it's straw to clear color, that means you're pretty much hydrated. Happy days, you're all good. You've drunk enough water there. If you're a little bit darker, probably means you just want to drink a little bit more. Um, and then also like the other things is, just having a look at, okay, if you are cramping, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of self-massage before you go to bed can sometimes help a little bit. There's a few other bits and pieces and kind of go into that nocturnal cramping, but they're the simple things there to tick off to begin with. Um, Simone, specific stretches after a big descent day. So yeah, really generally rule of thumb of stretching is really just sort of having a judge of, okay, what feels a little bit cooked out at the end of the day, and what do I want to stretch? It's a really, really personal thing. It's super, super, super simple. But to give you a couple of really simple ideas, um, let me have a look. Bear with me. I'm just going to pull up. So I'm going to share my screen again. So yeah, a couple of really, really simple things is what do I call it? Hamstring. So this one can be a nice one you can do in camp. You can use like a towel, or you can use like really anything that's lying around. A lot of people have seen this before, but as I sort of said before, sometimes the hamstrings and the calves can take a bit of a battering just from that like step and slide, step and slide, step and slide. So this one can be quite a nice one just at the end of the day, where you basically lie on your back like in camp or in your tent, whatever it may be, loop something around your leg and just basically pull it up straight and literally sit in that for 60, 90 seconds. Really, really simple. You don't have to go too intense, too hard, or anything like this, but that can be a nice option. For the calves, well, so for the calves again, they can sometimes get a little bit battered. This can be a nice one you can sort of do with your water bottle. I'm not sure if people can see this very well, but basically this one involves getting your water bottle. Um, yeah, getting your water bottle and you're literally just doing a bit of self massage on your calves in camp. So if this starts loading, and then basically, yeah, all you're doing is getting your water bottle, rolling up and down the calves. You can do this in your tent or in camp, whatever it may be. Can be quite nice, again, releasing a little bit of tension there. Some people feel a little bit uncomfortable rolling up and down, so literally you can just sit your calf on there and then just put your weight, rest your weight on. You don't even have to lift up your hips or anything, but you can just sort of sit in there. That can be quite a nice one. And the final one that I'll sort of show is just a simple quad stretch can be a nice one just again to take a bit of pressure off. So doing something like this where you're basically just stretching quads, put up there, getting a bit of stretch to the front of the thighs. Or if that's a little bit tricky, you can do something like this. That's the wrong one. Sorry, I got a million videos here. You can do something like this with your trekking pole, where you're basically again just doing self massage. You get your trekking pole and you're literally just rubbing up and down your calves here. You can do the same thing. You may not be able to see. You can do the same thing with like a water bottle, but you're just getting something hard and literally just working up and down. Typically, if you hit those three areas, they tend to do the job. The hamstrings, the calves, and the what do you call it? The quads. That will sort of sort you out. So Tyler, nighttime magnesium, yeah, that can definitely help with cramping as well. So magnesium is going to be typically one. Um, typically, I think it's in the electrolytes usually. So you can take magnesium pills. Another nice one is if you do get the nocturnal cramps, you can get like spray on magnesium, which I quite like. Which if you just go to Google, just type in spray on magnesium. It's a really nice product where you can just basically just squirt it on the muscles that are cramping up. Can help it just chill out and relax a little bit. You buy a bottle for like I don't know, $40 or something, and it will last you forever. Yeah, it can be really really good. And then yeah, Lydia, I'll put this in. So summitstrength.com.au/strength-mini-course. So yeah, if anyone want to get their hands on that free course, summitstrength.com.au/strength-mini-course. And Olivia, I'll flick you over links for that. Email it over after. But I think I covered everyone's questions there. So yeah, cool. So that will probably do us for tonight. So thank you so much for having me on. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to flick me an email, Olivia. If there's any follow-ups, yeah, feel free to send out my email. I'm happy to answer any questions. But aside from that, I hope people enjoyed this, got some good info from it. And yeah, if you follow up on the course or anything like that, hope you get some good info from there. But aside from that, have a lovely evening, everyone, and we'll talk to you, in a month's time. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Rowan. Bye, guys. Have a wonderful night.